Before pandemic, there were these times, right? My husband's family had gathered together for a week to be with each other. One evening, I was reading a book to my, at the time, 3.5-year-old nephew, John. The book was about a rabbit who wanted to build a house, but he didn't know what kind to build, so the bunny was looking at what other animals and birds had done in trying to figure out what type of a house would work for him. Well, I could hardly read because at the end of every sentence, John would ask a question. Why did the bunny want to build a house? Why did the bunny ask the birds about their house? Why was the bird's house so high up on the tree? And why didn't fit for a rabbit? For a moment, I thought about the importance of having a home for animals and for us, as if we are to thrive, that the home is intended to provide a shelter that protects us from dangers, allows us to get the very needed rest so that we can engage the daily things waiting for us. And I did think about the many who live without a shelter and struggle to survive. However, instead of saying all this, I decided to find out what John already knows and what he thinks about all this. So I asked, "What do you think?" "Why?" Well, what he said is, "If I knew, I wouldn't be asking." We all have encountered the multitude of questions that children ask. Why is often their favorite, because everything seems so new and so wonderful to them. As we are used to questioning everything. In fact, we even take pride in ourselves for being part of that faith tradition that puts questions at the center. Unlike some other traditions, we're not just allowing questions, we are encouraging them. We also know that the questions do not have just one answer, but many. And what makes questions more beautiful and interesting is because there's no telling where they will lead us. Many of us found Unitarian Universalism because we asked questions about our beliefs and understandings of the world and our place in it. We were not satisfied with the answers we had inherited, and we kept searching for new answers. The first female astronomer in the United States, anyone knows her name? Maria Mitchell. Maria Mitchell was one of the UUs, or Unitarians I should say at that time, who kept asking questions since she was a little girl. She would ask what and how when she was 2 and 3 years old, and then why at the age of 4. Her parents tried to answer her questions, but no matter how many questions they answered, she always had more. She asked them at home, at school, at her Quaker church. At night, she and her father would go up to the rooftop and look at the stars. Well, she had many questions about the stars, some of which her father could not answer. She decided she would find out answers herself, go study stars, even though in those days, women could not go to college. She studied hard and discovered a comet. She earned many awards and honors for her work. She also was an early advocate for science and math education for girls, and she became the first female astronomy professor. And yet, she still had more questions. How do we know God exists? How do we know what is true? Some people gave her answers. Some people did not want her to ask these questions anymore. She knew the answers to these questions could not be found easily, and yet she kept asking. That's when Maria joined Unitarian Church, because she heard there was room for an infinity of questions and an infinity of answers there. And for the rest of her life, Maria kept asking what, how, and why, and she taught others to ask questions, to think for themselves, and to find an infinity of answers. Our children and youth are returning to school, and as we are celebrating this moment, we're also reminded, most of us are reminded of our experience back in school. If you went to a school that's similar to mine, you probably remember that teachers would ask questions and we would raise a hand to offer an answer, right? A lot of times that meant the teacher had an answer in mind already, right? But I want to encourage us to think about the ways we ask questions that lead to many answers. So, a Unitarian Universalist member of the Westside Church, Stan Yoder, offered this story conversation type a while ago, and I will follow this. So it's a little bit more of an engagement, and I may come in front there again. I have something in my hand. Let me take this in case I need to reference this. So I have a question for y'all. How big is a penny? Couple centimeters. 3/4 of an inch. Half an inch. Any other answer? 1/16 of an inch. Thick. Oh, see? Thickness. So, is it bigger than a dime? Smaller than a dime? Bigger. My hands are shaking. I can't hold it. So, your answer actually depends on what system you're using. Are you comparing it to something? Right? It depends. Are you comparing? Are you using centimeters as a measuring tool? Are you using inches? What system you're using? So answer really depends, right? There's no one consistent answer that would be the answer to this. So next question. What color is an apple? Are you hearing this? Okay, for those that are on Zoom. So, if it's a green apple, then it will be green. If it's a red apple, it will be red. But if it's not ripe, then they will be all green. Some might be more yellowish than green, right? What else did I miss out here? Brown and rotten. Right? Yellow. Some yellow. When I asked the question, what color is an apple, do you think I was intending to ask about the outside of the apple or the inside of the apple?
White.
Right, white. Golden. So the answers really depend, right? Again, the same depend. But then there's also what's happening, right? Is this still an apple hanging on the tree getting ripe? Or it's already in the grocery store? Is it already cooked? in an apple pie, right? Those are mostly yellowish, brownish, right?
Sitting in the back of the produce bin for a month.
Yes.
Black.
On black, right? Okay. You want one more question? What color is the sky? So it depends if it's clear. If it's clear, then what color is that? Depends on the time of day. So, what else? So do we have clouds? Do we have not? Do we have
Is the sun coming up? Is it going down?
sun coming up, sun going down, right? All the shades that we see when the sun is coming. And if it's nighttime, is it going to be blue or gray?
Are there wildfires?
Are there wildfires going on, right? What if...
It's 100,000 feet up, it's black.
Exactly. What if we are Maria Mitchell descendants and we're able to go up in the sky and look back down? What color is the sky then? Right? So, our answers depend on what is happening. My visuals are kind of, right? And our perspective. What place we are engaging the answer from. Are we looking down from here, where we have to look this way and see pretty bluish skies? Are we up in the sky with our astronomers and watching it from up there? The sky color will be different. So, I'll go back. We did great. Yes, you absolutely passed. I think this is an example of how the way we ask questions matter to the way we will be looking for the answer. And some questions challenge our minds. They open us up to very different understandings. They may shift our perspective once we actually deeply engage in our search for the answer. And then there are questions that will be unanswered for much longer, and it will take a lot longer journey to find the answers that we will be more or less satisfied with. This is how we go deeper in our understanding, and that's part of our spiritual growth, our journey in our religious education practices that we engage in. We're considering our own questions, we're considering other people's questions, and they're engaging their journey and exploration of what is true. And we grow through this. Thomas Merton once said, if the you of 5 years ago doesn't consider today the you of today a heretic, you're not growing spiritually. So even if we have found our faith home, we are still constantly changing. We're growing in our beliefs, whether they're religious, economic, philosophical, or political. And we know that holding questions is not an easy task. If you think back on your journey, you may have encountered in those experiences where you were asked to stop asking questions. Maybe you chose not to ask because you were told these questions were wrong, or you just did not receive the listening ear for your questions at the time. And these things happen in religious settings, they happen in schools, they happen at home, they happen everywhere else. And it becomes even more difficult to hold questions in times of crisis. When the ground is shifting, when we lose something important to us, our lives become filled with uncertainty. These are those times when we wonder, what will happen next? Will I be ever able to feel whole again? When will I be at peace with myself and with whatever else is going around me? Denise Levertov says, just when you seem to yourself nothing but a flimsy web of questions, you are given the questions of others to hold in the emptiness of your hands. Butterflies, opening and closing themselves in your cupped palms, trusting you not to injure their scintillant fur, their dust. In this poem, Denise compares questions to butterflies, emphasizing that questions are fragile. They come from deep within our hearts, they are tender, and they are to be held with care, just as if we were holding a butterfly in our hands. To receive a question from someone means that we were trusted with something important. And it is possible to injure if we are not carefully holding these questions. We know that touching a butterfly wings is detrimental to them. However, we also know that there is strength and power in a butterfly. Professor John Tatamani says that when a butterfly flutters its wings in the Amazon, it triggers a typhoon in China. And this is called the butterfly effect, where the most delicate fluctuation in the conditions affects change far beyond our ability to comprehend in all its fullness. And that's the truth about radical interconnectedness that binds us together. And it's not just this romanticized notion of goodness. We did see this effect play out for these past few years. And it taught us that our ties to one another, when they're left unattended, can wound as much as they can heal. So there's power in questions, power that can enact change. You and I know that questions and curiosity helps us grow, and that holding questions is not a simple task. There are many questions that we cannot answer. We cannot answer for others, and maybe never for ourselves. Another poet, Rainer Marie Rilke, reminds us, sometimes we must learn to live with questions. He wrote in the classic work, Letters to a Young Poet, I beg you to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. And perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Sometimes all we can do is live the question. Embrace the uncertainty and hold each other through this time. Holding each other's questions with care and tenderness, and knowing that we will gradually live into the answers. May it be so.